Made in Lagos,
Yeah.
Wizkid, the buzz for the new album has started again.
Yes.
First of all, why do you think that album has been delayed to this time?
It's a bunch of reasons. I feel there are internal issues that Wizkid has to deal with that he has not dealt with. It's not going to be music related alone. It must be from a business standpoint too. He signed to a label, but I feel there must be some kind of issues with RCA and Sony that he has not dealt with, because starting from 2018, Wizkid started moving a little differently. Maybe even December 2017 when Maya was released. I felt the song with Mute was kind of a song, but then it was credited to Mute. Soccer, which was one of the biggest songs of 2018, was credited to Starboy. The same thing with Fake Love. Fever, Master Groove, Joro, Get to Love was credited to Wizkid. But then all of a sudden, ZP was credited to Starboy in December 2019. So there must be some kind of issues that Wizkid has to deal with his label or some other thing. A few weeks ago, Pulse did an article about what was the problem with Wizkid. People can read that on Pulse. The first time Wizkid talked about this album was 2018, while he was talking with Digicentex. He told Tim Westwood that there was going to be an EP. Then a little while later, he said there was going to be an album of 10 songs with no features. But then all of a sudden, Wizkid has delayed that album for the past almost 3 years now. So it feels like he's nervous about something. He's not comfortable with something. And then at this time, with the way 2019 started for Wizkid, he didn't release anything until the middle of the year, aside Low, which was a Larry Gaga song. He didn't release any song until like the third quarter of the year with Joro and Get to Love. It shows us that Wizkid is being careful with what he's doing. It's being furtive and intentional with it. It also shows an artist that understands the soundscape. He understands that he cannot afford to make certain mistakes. He cannot afford to have an album that doesn't break the grounds. Sounds from the other side, as much as a lot of people like it, it's a polarizing project. The sounds on the album were not as rounded enough. Some people like it, but personally, me, I don't like it. I think it's an average album. It's not a poor album, but it's an average. It's not on the level of, say, Soundman, which is a poor album. It was a poor project. Sounds from the other side was kind of average. That's why I can understand why a lot of people might not like it. So Wizkid understands that for the time that we are in, which features a soundscape that is evolving drastically and aggressively, and sees a new guard for the first time in a number of years, Wizkid must know that there's a new guard in town, and he knows that these boys are very hungry.
So who are these new guards that you're talking about that you think Wizkid is watching? Do you think Wizkid is scared of anyone? Like, who do you think these guys are?
I don't think Wizkid is scared. I wouldn't say he's scared. But as an artist, even though if you're a writer, you will know that someone else is coming. You will feel it. You will have your guard up. You will have your work ethic renewed. So there are two types of people. When a new person comes into town, some people will just relax and get comfortable because I'm the greatest. Other people will put in work and they'll be intentional with what they're doing. I think Wizkid is being intentional with it. So who are these guys? Rema, Fireboy, Joe Boy. This year I see Normally again, who has joined them. A lot of other guys. There was Classic. There's Bad Boy Teams, who people are not talking about. That boy is doing great things in the industry. Michael Jackson is sort of a sleeper hit. It's sort of being the sleeper hit of 2020 in Nigerian music. So I think Wizkid understands those guys, and if he understands that the soundscape and the hollow that Nigeria, we talked about why Nigeria has not had a hit a couple of episodes ago, and that was because we wanted to analyze why certain things are being dictated the way they are being dictated in Nigerian music. So Wizkid understands that. He understands that the hollow that currently occurs in Nigerian music, those boys are sort of feeling, they are not feeling it onto the ground, but they are feeling it away. But who is Wizkid? He's the greatest of his generation. The last major change of guard that we had brought Wizkid, and that's Frank Soli. He is the greatest of that generation. Is he the poster boy of Afrobeats currently? No, that's Burna Boy. But is Wizkid the greatest of his generation? Absolutely, 100%. He is. And he knows that. So the pressure of greatness might sort of have gotten to him. But he knows now that the guys on ground, he said that, what does he want to do now? Does he want to become a D'banj or does he want to become a Two-Face? What happened before 2010? Two-Face dropped Unstoppable album in 2018. the album sort of tanked. He himself said it in an interview with Pulse that it was a flop. By 2010, he made a comeback like no other with the Unstoppable International Edition and won awards, BT Awards, Eddies, Mamas, won everything. But the band never had that sort of leap. The band, by 2010, the band dropped Mr. Endowed. 2011 dropped Mr. Endowed. He didn't have that cloudy moment. He still won the BT Awards in 2011. But then, by the time he dropped Mr. Endowed and he dropped Oliver Twist, he sort of nosedived. But Two-Face, on the other hand, is dropped after Unstoppable International Edition. He dropped Away and Beyond, which is one of his best albums ever. People just don't talk about that album. It's a quality album.
Commercially, it's not really.
It's not viable commercially,
quality-wise.
but quality-wise, it's an amazing body of work. Now, Ascension, a lot of people don't like it. I don't really like it, but it's not a bad album. It's not a bad album either. 2018, Two-Face still had a hit. When was the last time the band had a hit in this country? Maybe that was 2013 with I'm on top of the world. Yeah, probably. That was the last time. So Wizkid now is at that crossroads. What does he want to become? Does he want to become a debanch that is never going to be irrelevant? But we still have, he's not going to be at the top, but he's never going to be relevant. Or is he going to be a Two-Face, who people will still hold to a higher standard or to a high standard in 10 years? So what does Wizkid want to become? I think he understands that now.
Okay. So what part, everything that you've said now, how does it lead to Made in Lagos? What part do you think this album is going to play in his legacy?
This album is the most important album of his career so far.
Not his debut, not his second album?
No, it's not. So Wizkid has a way of having albums drop. I don't think maybe he's fortunate or unfortunate about it, but his albums drop at material times in his career, pivotal times. When Superstar dropped in 2011, the Nigerian, he was leading. He was even leading it because, as Davido said in a recent interview, he said he was a fan of Wizkid. He wanted to be like Wizkid. Wizkid was the guy. And it was on a label that was intentional about everything that they were doing.
The A&R was perfect.
Oh my God, Banky W. Shout out to Banky W, by the way. Faxon did amazing work with Wizkid. They dropped All Out Your Boy, which was a song that endeared him towards a female fan base. The next single was a single that basically took Wizkid from what we knew as a boy next door sort of boy band person to a guy that was singing about bad guys and tease me. That was amazing switch. That endeared him towards the boys. By the time he dropped Don't Door, that was a mainstream hit. It was a progression that was well planned. By the time he got to Pakurumo, that was Yoruba proper Owambe Nigerian parties. And Wizkid was made. It was done. Superstar dropped. It's a classic album. It's one of the few classics that Nigerian music has seen over the past 10 years. Amazing project. Superstar is so good that you can argue that all the songs were probably hits. It was that good. By the time he was coming into Ayo, his second album, Davido was having an amazing run. People don't realize that. And that was his last album with EME. Olamide was also having an amazing run at the time. Sean Tizzo, Kiss Daniel, all of those boys were making, and Techno, they were making entrances to the industry. Tiwa Savage, they were running at the same time. Wizkid knew it was a time that Jaye dropped, but Wizkid had this run between 2010 and 2012 where it was running on everything Wizkid touched at the time was amazing. It was just, if Wizkid just does, yeah, it's a hit already. No arguments. But by the time it was 2013, 2014, things started changing a bit. So when Ayo dropped, Ayo was another pivotal moment in his career. And as much as that album might not be a quality album, it's probably the album of his career that's probably aged the best. Do you know why? Because some of the songs that we didn't like here, they were subtly hits in the Nigerian mainstream. A song like In My Bed, that song basically took Wizkid from here and took him outside the country, presented him. Oju Elegba is one of the most important songs in recent Nigerian history, and that's facts upon facts. That's facts only. So the thing is, he achieved that. As much as that album might not be a quality album, it dropped at a particular time. He delivered, so to speak. Even though his status and his ability as an artist played an important role, he delivered. By the time it was Sounds from the Other Side, it didn't really work. As much as Come Closer was a good song, it didn't really penetrate as much as it could have. And it was because Wizkid was also a victim of timing and occurrences. After the Banj and Ice Prince, Wizkid was sort of the guy that went into that space at a time when
the Afrobeat to the world space.
I think he was probably even the one that pioneered the word Afrobeat to the world. In a way, it was probably a creation that came off the presence of Wizkid's Oju Elegba movement into that space. And after he had One Dance, I think he was even the one that was probably saying it the most at some point. Afrobeats to the world. Africa to the world, Afrobeats to the world. He used to say it a lot. Nigerians criticized him for it, but he knew what it was. It was part of the brand, and it worked in a way. Wizkid was important to that demography. He did it and he cracked it. In a way, he didn't do it as much as he didn't get what Burna Boy is getting now. But it was a forerunner, it was a pace setter. It prepared the ground for a Burna Boy to come into the industry.
Okay. So you just gave us a breakdown of all his albums. Yes. One thing is clear though, the one everyone agrees that is quality from top to bottom is Superstar.
Yes.
And that was the one he did, with a structure around him, like a label structure that was banking up with the A&R and everything. So do you trust him to be able to make something close to the level of that quality now? Because he's still on his own. Yeah. And he has, since he went on his own, he has not been able to deliver on that level.
Yes.
Do you think Made in Lagos is that album?
To be honest, I can't say that I have faith that he will. I don't. It pains me to admit this, but Wizkid over the past 2 years his music has been sort of monotonous. He has this vibe thing. It's on the level of the music. So it's Fake Love was probably the first song that came out of that movement, of that vibe, Afro vibe. That's what I like to call it. It comes off this dancehall Afrobeat mellow structure where there's a particular strings that keep going, and the drums are sort of beh, 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 beh. So Fake Love was one of those songs. Maybe not Fake Love, but Master Groove, Fever, Maya was kind of on that vibe, but Maya was more avant-garde, was more radical. But Low was on that vibe. Joro was sort of radical too in a way, but was still on that vibe. Ghetto Love was on that vibe too. The songs from Soundman Volume 1, which were just not part of it, were on that vibe too, even though Wizkid used KLP and Black Jersey on that album. So it feels like he has not plateaued creatively because he's so talented. Wizkid is probably one of the most, as much as I think he doesn't have an expansive sonic palette that allows him to excel on a range of sounds and genres, like say Burna Boy or a Rema or a Check. Okay, those boys are too small for it. Like a Rema and a Burna Boy. Let's say Burna Boy, even Rema might not necessarily do justice, might be some sort of disrespect. But a Burna Boy who can go on a trap song and kill it. He can go on whatever and he can go on folk and kill it. He can excel on anything. But all Wizkid has is, he has a unique way with Afrobeat records that almost nobody has. And it's so natural to him. As much as he might not have the great songwriting that other acts have, he knows how to generate this level of vibe that we like to call vibe that matches the right type of beats. It's so amazing the way he does it. However, I'm going to leave another thing. The intensity with which Wizkid addresses Afrobeat songs has kind of dropped over the past 3-4 years. It might not be fair to say that, but it's not the same anymore. Do you know why? Because Wizkid has sort of pigeonholed himself to this vibe sound. This vibe sound, so the first time we sort of saw the vibe sound was Maya, the song we had with Mute about 3 years ago, in December 2019 or November 2019. And then in 2018, we sort of saw it with Fake Love. But Fake Love was sort of avant-garde, just like Maya was avant-garde. And then in 2018 December, the song Fever and Master Groove came on that sound. The sound has this sort of flat, not flat, that sort of dominant string that goes or something, keeps going like that. Wizkid might still be able to do it if he can employ unique people to come to his team. I feel currently the problem with Wizkid, the music is not reflecting someone who is recording with different ideas. Wizkid has sort of pigeonholed himself to that sound. It seems he's not able to break out of it. I think he can, but I don't think he sees the need to break out of it because the sounds are too similar to each other and it's becoming worrying. That was the reason why my review for Sound Man Volume 1 was my same harsh to everybody. Because you have the capability to do it, but you are not doing it, and that's facts. I wasn't hearing things that would take me to another realm. I wasn't hearing sounds that would make me go. The shock value was lacking. And that's why I didn't transcend Wizkid FC. Some people might like it outside Wizkid FC, but to a significant extent, in ways that we can consider success, that transcend its primary fan base. The EP did not. And if Wizkid can find a way to get songwriters on board and expand his mind to go and do things and expand his mind in a way that the sound will transcend the things that we've seen, he can do it. But do I have faith that he can do that? I don't. I really don't. And that's facts.